Let's bring in University of New Hampshire Assistant Law Professor Danielle Pye. Professor, your takeaway from these oral arguments today?
So it's very difficult to predict sometimes how the court is going to decide, but sometimes the court will give you some sort of a clue on where they're leaning. And it seems pretty clear from the justices' questions during oral argument that most likely they will decide against Colorado and in favor of Trump remaining on the ballot.
Were you surprised that we even heard skepticism from liberal justices like Ketanji Brown Jackson?
Well, not really. I think oftentimes the perception of the court is that it divides along partisan lines, like Congress or various governors or state organizations. But the truth is that the court is trying to decide matters of law, and the majority of Supreme Court decisions are actually unanimous. And so a lot of times I think the partisanship is overplayed. Fundamentally, what the court is interested in is retaining their authority as the court more than their partisan allegiances. And in a lot of ways, what they're saying is that Colorado is overstepping what is the Supreme Court, the federal court system's purview.
And this court has a 6-3 conservative majority. Do you think this decision will be unanimous as well?
But it's hard to predict. I think it's hard to predict whether it'll be unanimous, but it seemed like the so-called liberal justices were siding with Trump on this.
So, Professor, if it goes in favor of Trump and the decision is unanimous, how much of a legal victory would that be for Donald Trump?
I thought this was sort of a long shot in the first place. The court had many off-ramps to decide that what Colorado did was unconstitutional. I mean, there was a First Amendment argument, there was the office argument, there's the officer argument, there's the Section 5 argument. There's a lot of arguments that they could have used. They seem to focus on the propriety of Colorado making this decision and how it affects other states, but they had many opportunities. And so in order for Colorado to prevail, a lot of things would have had to line up and go correctly. And so it's not that much of a surprise that this is not going to work.
And talk about the importance and the significance of the legal issues over Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, especially for international viewers who may not be familiar, why this is a big deal.
Sure. So Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was ratified in the 19th century after the Civil War. And historically, the concern was that after the North had won the Civil War, that a bunch of Confederate politicians would infiltrate the federal government anyway. And so Section 3 was designed to make sure that people who actively supported the Confederacy would be kept out of the federal government. And so the Section 3 hasn't really been used since that time. And so a lot of the legal questions that are coming up now are placing that text in a completely new context. And so the court has to decide some difficult questions about how that language applies today. And that's a difficult thing to do, and the court is, I think, somewhat reluctant to be too committal on that.
And quickly, touching on something our correspondent Caroline Malone said outside the Supreme Court, that there's speculation the decision from the High Court would come sooner than later. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. They understand that this is a matter of importance and that expediency is of a high value here, and they're able to do it, and the fact that they've heard the case so quickly indicates that they understand they're on a timeline here.
All right, we'll leave it there. Danielle Pye, thank you.